The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky over Calhoun County, Florida, in shades of orange and pink, when I pulled my pickup into the gravel drive of my grandpa's old house. The porch steps groaned under my boots, same as they did when I was a kid, chasing fireflies while Grandpa Joe smoked his pipe and told stories of the 70s. I was still in my sheriff's deputy uniform, badge glinting, dust clinging to my heels from a long shift, and there he was, Joe Ramsey, 87 years young, rocking in his creaky chair like time hadn't touched him. "Evenin', officer," he rasped, voice like whiskey and gravel, flashing that half-smirk he's had since Nixon was in office. I tossed him a greasy paper bag from Smokey's barbecue, plopped down beside him, and we watched the cicadas hum in the pines as the world turned quiet. That house wasn't just boards and shingles, it was our blood, built by my great-granddad, passed down like a sacred vow. But now it was surrounded, hemmed in by shiny new subdivisions with names like Willow Creek Estates, all manicured lawns and HOA rules sharper than barbed wire. See, about a year ago, this HOA Willow Creek Homeowners Association sprang up like kudzu, and with it came their queen bee, Linda Grayson. She was all pearls and pressed blouses, but her smile was colder than a January creek. She showed up at Grandpa's gate, clipboard in hand, hair sprayed stiff as a helmet, telling him his house was an eyesore, a threat to their precious property values. "Mr. Ramsey," she said, "all sugar and venom, we'd love to bring you into our community or help you sell, if that's easier." Grandpa leaned on his cane, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "Lady, I was here when your cul-de-sac was a cow pasture." She didn't laugh. From then on, it was war quiet at first, but war all the same. Letters started piling up in the mailbox, friendly reminders, then formal notices, then threats of fines and lawsuits. All nonsense, mind you. I'd done my homework. The deed was in my name, notarized clean, and our land set outside their jurisdiction, free and clear. But Linda didn't care about fact, she wanted control. I was away for a 2-week training stint with the National Guard in Georgia when things got ugly. Before I left, I bolted new locks on the doors, set up motion sensor cameras, and given Grandpa a burner phone with my direct line in the sheriff's office on speed dial. I thought I'd covered all the bases, figured Linda would stick to her petty letters and maybe some zoning board hustle. What I didn't see coming was how far she'd go, how fast neighborly smiles could turn into something sinister. Grandpa didn't want to worry me, so he downplayed it on our calls. "Just a bunch of busybodies flapping their jaws," he'd say, but I could hear the strain in his voice, see him glancing over his shoulder in the camera feeds. Then, 3 nights before it all blew up, Linda slipped a fancy laminated envelope under the gate. Grandpa read it, shook his head, and tossed it into the fire pit. I only found out later what it said. They were planning to reclaim our property for the community's benefit. Whatever that meant, it wasn't good. It started with whispers, not sledgehammers. While I was gone, Linda and her HOA cronies turned up the heat on Grandpa in ways that didn't leave marks, just chipped away at his peace. They flooded his mailbox with notice-compliant residents. Urgent corrective action required taped them to his windows, even stuffed one in the birdhouse like they wanted the sparrows to serve eviction papers. Then came the late-night door knocks. Guys in polo shirts claiming to be compliance officers, women with binders demanding to inspect unpermitted modifications. One had the gall to tell Grandpa he'd face enforcement if he didn't schedule a community walkthrough. Enforcement of what? He wasn't part of their HOA, and we had the surveys to prove it. But they weren't playing with facts, they were playing with fear. At HOA meetings, rumors spread that our house was abandoned, that Grandpa was some unhinged old hermit. I found a post in their private Facebook group later, calling our home a blight on Willow Creek. It had 30 likes and comments egging Linda on to fix it. Then it got personal. Neighbors Grandpa had known for decades and started crossing the street to avoid him. One yelled at him to clean up that dump after a storm knocked down a few branches. Realtors started circling like vultures. One guy in a cheap suit offered to buy the place at market plus incentives. When Grandpa told him to get lost, a letter arrived on HOA letterhead, signed by Linda, with the same offer. Then someone called Adult Protective Services, claiming an unwell senior was living in an unsafe house. The caseworker left red-faced after 5 minutes with Grandpa, who showed her his spotless kitchen and a deed older than her parents'. But the worst was some guy in jeans flashing a fake badge, claiming to be a county inspector. Grandpa grilled him on zoning laws until he bolted. I watched it all on the camera feed from my bunk in Georgia, my knuckles white, wanting to drive home right then. But Grandpa stopped me. "Finish your training, son," he said. "We'll handle this when you're back." The breaking point came at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was in a briefing when my phone buzzed with a door sensor alert. I glanced at the feed and felt my stomach drop. 3 guys in black polos, tactical belts, one holding a crowbar, were marching up Grandpa's porch. Another alert. Back door breached. I was out of my chair, muttering, "I gotta go," and sprinting to my truck before anyone could blink. The feed showed them inside now, fanning out like they'd rehearsed it, one wearing a body cam like this was some SWAT raid. And there, strutting in behind them, was Linda Grayson, sunglasses perched on her nose, clipboard clutched like a scepter, her blouse crisp as if she was headed to a garden party. She didn't knock. She just waltzed in. Grandpa stood in the hallway, cane in one hand, phone in the other, telling them to leave, then shouting it. Linda's voice cut through, calm and vicious. "You're illegally occupying a community asset, Mr. Ramsey." One of her goons started dragging furniture out Grandpa's armchair, the one he'd sat in every night since I was born, dumped sideways on the lawn like trash. Then it got worse. Linda handed a paper to one of the guys, who nodded and locked Grandpa in the pantry, lashed it from the outside like he was a squatter in his own home. And then she called 911, all fake concern. "We've got an elderly man squatting at 312 Oak Bend. He's confused, possibly aggressive." I was tearing down the highway by then, lights flashing, praying I'd make it in time. But here's the thing. Our address is flagged in the sheriff's system. Any call about 312 Oak Bend goes straight to my unit. Deputy Carla Ruiz, a friend I'd trained with, was on duty. She saw the call, saw the feed, and rolled up in under 10 minutes with another cruiser. Carla didn't wait for backup. She yanked the crowbar guy off the porch, cuffed him before he could sputter, "Jurisdiction." The fake marshal flashed a badge that looked like it came from a costume shop. Carla just smirked. "Save it for the judge, buddy." Linda came storming out, waving her gold foil HOA packet like it was a court order. "That man's a trespasser," she snapped. Carla raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, you got a deed saying you own this house." Linda thrust her papers forward. Carla glanced at them. "This is a neighborhood charter, not a title. You can't even repaint a mailbox with this." Linda's face twitched, her composure cracking. That's when I pulled up, still in my guard uniform, dash cam rolling. I didn't say a word, just walked past the gawking HOA volunteers, past the patrol cars, and knocked on the pantry door. "Grandpa, it's me." He opened it, shaky but grinning. "Took you long enough, kid." I turned to the crowd. Linda, her goons, the neighbors filming on their phones. I let my body cam hum, let the silence stretch. Linda tried to rally, stammering about due process. I held up a file, the deed, the surveys, the zoning letter stating our land was never part of Willow Creek. "I'm not done," I said, pulling out a USB drive. "This is your voice, Linda, calling my grandpa a parasite who won't last long." The crowd went dead quiet. Linda looked like she'd been slapped. I nodded to Carla. "I'm requesting charges for unlawful entry, elder abuse, fraud, and impersonation." She was already moving. Linda tried to bluster, even as Carla read her rights. "This isn't over," she hissed, pointing at Grandpa, who was sipping iced tea like he was watching a bad movie. Carla shut her down. "Ma'am, you locked an 87-year-old man in his pantry. You're done." Sheriff Dan Harper rolled up next, took one look at the scene, and grunted. "Heard you were in Georgia, Ramsey." I shrugged. Schedule changed. He glanced at the cuffed goons, then at Linda. "You pressing charges?" I handed him the file. Enough for a trilogy. By noon, Linda was in a squad car, charged with 5 felonies. The HOA board scattered, claiming they didn't know. Neighbors who'd shunned Grandpa started whispering apologies. One woman admitted that Linda had bullied her into selling her home cheap. Another said Linda threatened her over a non-compliant fence. We dug deeper, found Linda was running a shady real estate side gig, pushing distressed sales with forged HOA docs. I handed it all to the DA. The trial was a slaughter. The footage, Linda's smirk, her goons tossing Grandpa's life into the dirt, her parasite line played on loop. I took the stand, told the jury how I'd watched it unfold from 300 miles away, helpless, my heart in my throat. The jury took 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. 6 years, no parole, plus $700,000 in damages. Linda didn't blink, just stared like she could will it all away. The HOA's insurance folded. Their board dissolved. A month later, Grandpa hung a sign on the gate, "HOA free zone. Freedom lives here." Folks started snapping selfies with it. The house was quiet again, the porch swing creaking as Grandpa read his paper. The mayor stopped by with a plaque for civic grit. Grandpa snorted so hard he spilled his tea. Me? I took a new job running internal affairs for the sheriff's office. Turns out, cleaning up messes suits me. Grandpa and I built a shed out back, using scrap wood just to thumb our noses at the old HOA rules. But here's the thing, Linda's gone, but there's always another Linda out there, someone who thinks they can bully their way to power, rewrite your story because it doesn't fit their playbook. I keep the USB drive on my desk, a reminder that justice isn't guaranteed. It's fought for, frame by frame. So, what do you think? Was Linda just a control freak, or was she part of something bigger? Have you ever dealt with an HOA horror story, or someone trying to push you out of your own life? Drop it in the comments. I am reading every one. And if this hit home, share it. Let's remind folks what happens when you stand your ground.